So in the first week of the lab, you isolated methyl benzoate. Before coming to the lab the second week, make sure you have done an IR of that product because you'll need it for your report. And to start the second week experiment, we're going to be preparing our Grignard reagent. So what you need to do is from your TA, we're going to have the 100 ml round bottom flask and this drying tube in an oven so that it will be dry and won't have any water stuck to the walls of the glass. Be careful because it's hot. And you're going to be taking this and getting your TA to add 2 grams of magnesium turnings into the round bottom. And as soon as you get them in there, make sure you put the drying tube on top, and that's going to make sure that no air or moisture from the air gets into the reaction flask. So once you have your magnesium turnings in the round bottom flask, you're going to be taking your heating mantle, making sure that it's plugged into the variac again. And you're going to take this and you're going to be turning the magnesium turnings inside, and you're going to be drying them. So you're heating them up to make sure that any moisture that's stuck to the outside of the magnesium turnings, you're going to be heating that up and making it volatilize away, and that's going to come out through the drying tube. And you're just going to kind of turn this around, and you want to go until all the magnesium turnings are able to turn freely inside. If there's moisture on the outside of them, they're going to stick to the glass and you'll be able to see that they're not quite dry. But here, as you can see, they're all flowing freely, so this is ready to go for the reaction. If you're having troubles getting your reaction to go, you can always talk to your TA and they'll come around and make sure that the magnesium is cleaved and ready to go, and they'll just press them with a stir rod. Once you've dried your magnesium turnings and you're just allowing that to cool down to room temperature, you want to set up your condenser so it's ready to go. So you put it in, remember, water in the bottom and out through the top. And you know it's cool enough to go ahead with the next part of the reaction when you can hold it in your hand without it being too hot that you can't. So that's just a rule of thumb. You're going to leave the drying tube on it as much as possible and then quickly switch it over to the condenser when you're ready. And that will just ensure that we don't get any air into the reaction flask. So to start out, we're going to be adding 15 mils of ether into the reaction flask. So you're just going to take this off, quickly add it, and then put it back on top. So we're going to do this here. And back on top. Then we're going to be adding our bromobenzene, and as soon as we've added that, that's when we're going to put the condenser on the top. So it might be easier if you have it unclamped ready to go. You could have one partner holding the condenser and the other person pouring it in and removing the other one. I'm just going to put it down on the bench ready to go. So we're going to pour this in. And then as soon as we can, put this condenser back up and in. And that'll just make sure the air won't get in. And we're also going to put the drying tube right into the top of the condenser there, just to make sure there's no flow of air back into the flask. So now that we have this, we're going to be heating it up with the heating mantle. And this time it's a little bit of a different setup because we're not going to set it up on a ring clamp underneath. We're going to have it sitting on the bench, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're very careful with holding this. You want to always hold at the neck of the flask, and you're going to take this and we're going to be rolling this around inside the heating mantle to get this reaction started. In this way we can always remove the flask from the heat if it's getting too hot. And you can have a ice bath set up so that we can cool it down. So the idea here is we want the reaction to start boiling, but we want it to be at a constant boiling rate. If there's too much boiling, then we want to remove it from the heat, and if it gets too cold, we want to bring it back. So you can see already that we're starting to drip here, and while this is going, I'm just going to support this on this clamp here. And I'm going to grab a ice bath so that this is ready to be cooled down if it needs to be. Okay, so here we have our ice bath, and at this point, if you've been waiting about 2 to 3 minutes for this to start going and it's not boiling yet, or you can't see any refluxing happening, then what you want to do is tell your TA, and they will come over and they'll take a glass rod and they'll actually just break up the magnesium so that you have a fresh face of magnesium in order to start the reaction. So this is going here, but I want it to be bubbling a little more, so I'm going to turn it up a bit. I started it on low, probably about 7, and now I'm going up to about a 10 on the Variac. There we go. So you can see that as that temperature was rising, the drip started to come faster and faster, and now we've got some boiling going down in the bottom. And this is what you want your reaction to look like here, is this amount of boiling. If it boils more than this, you'll want to raise it up out of the heating mantle and cool it down. So you can see that if we just remove this from the heat, it'll just cool down a bit. We can also use it to stir the reaction a tiny bit. And also, you don't always have to dunk it right into the cold bath. Sometimes just hovering over the top will help to cool it down. So there we go, we're kind of cooled back down. It's not boiling as vigorously as it was. And when it slows down a little too much, then you'll want to put it back on. Because the temperature of this Variac brought it above the point where we want it, we're going to adjust the temperature back down a little bit. So we're basically wanting to adjust the Variac so that we have an even temperature. That way we can leave it for the hour and have a constant rate of boiling. And once you have that constant rate of boiling, you can leave this for an hour. Make sure that at least one of the partners is watching the reaction at all times. So one person can go and clean up, but have one set of eyes on the reaction at all times to make sure that the boiling is at a constant rate. So once this has been going for about an hour, we're going to take it and we're going to move it into the ice bath, just to cool it down and get it ready. Okay, so now that we've had it cooled down in our ice bath, you can see that we've got a nice deep red color, and that's from the bromine in the solution. And now we're going to make we're going to react the Grignard reagent with our product from the first week of lab. So we're going to take the product you had isolated and you're going to dissolve it into 15 mils of ether. And we're going to be putting this into the reaction flask. We're going to use a pipette and go through the condenser into the cooled down Grignard reagent. So to do this, we're just going to get ready, and then we're going to take this off. Again, you want to remove the drying column as little as you can. So we're just going to add this in the top, and you're going to want to put it down slowly because the reaction is going to start and you're going to end up getting it going a little bit. Not sure if you can see this very well, but you can see the reaction there is starting. there's white powder coming out. So, and you want to make sure that the water level does not go higher than your flask because you don't want water into your reaction. So just be careful with that. You can have one partner making sure that that holds steady. And again, just adding the methyl benzoate. So once this reaction has stopped, and we're just going to add another 15 mils of ether, and we're going to use that to rinse out our flask here, just to make sure that we've had a complete transfer of our compound. So I've added 15 mils of ether in here, and I'm just going to use the pipette to wash down the sides. And then we'll add this through the condenser as well. And make sure that you rinse around all the way, all the walls of the condenser to make sure everything went down to the bottom. So once you've added all of the ether over and the reaction is completed, we can now take the condenser off and just put it back here. And then we're going to stopper it right away. So a cork stopper, which your TA will provide you with. And then that's going to be ready to stay for next week. So that's the end of the second week lab. You can see that there's solid settling to the bottom, and that's what we're going to isolate next time and use for the last part of the reaction.